Hello and servus to this episode of the Coach Alexander Kron podcast. Today's guest is Lee Kemp, the president of the UKDFBA. Lee is in the bodybuilding business longer than I'm even alive, so he really knows what he's talking about. He competed first in 1993 and is promoting shows for about 25 years now. If you like this episode and want to have more English episodes here on the podcast, feel free to reach out to me so we'll produce them more frequently in the future. And now, enjoy the episode.
Well, thank you, Alexander Danker, for having me on the show. As you say, been in the business for a long time. I competed in my first bodybuilding contest in 1993. I competed actively up until 98. Never retired. Never say never. But life took me in a different direction. Promoted my first bodybuilding contest in 96. So I've done 25 years promoting, but we founded the UKDFBA 10 years ago. We've done 10 years as the UKDFBA. This is our 11th year doing it this year. Over the years, competitor, coaching, judging, promoting, officiating. I've done every job at a bodybuilding contest, from sweeping up the mess backstage after the contest to taking urine samples, to drug test people. I've been to about 6 different sanctioning bodies as an international judge, judged Worlds, Universe, Europe contests, and pretty much had a very rich and very exciting life in the sport. I first started training in about 1991 roundabout there, to help me with other sports, and then picked up a bodybuilding magazine one day to try and learn a little bit more about what I was doing, and kind of fell in love with what I saw in the pages in a very inspired kind of manner, and still to this day love it. Don't train so much anymore. I still have I have my own private facility that a small number of people train at, all with hardcore basic equipment. I still get in there as often as I can, but I work 60 hours a week full time for my actual career as well. So between that, promoting the bodybuilding and trying to get some family time, my time's a little bit more limited than it used to be. The body doesn't work so well as it used to. I was a competitive martial artist and combat sports participant for on and off probably 20 years. So injuries, muscle tears, joint problems, dropped on my head too many times, so the body doesn't function as well as it used to, but I keep myself ticking over and I still love what I do.
Yeah, it seems like you really like time-consuming hobbies like bodybuilding, promoting bodybuilding, all the combat sports and stuff like that. And that's all besides your the actual job. But if anybody who's listening that is really interested in your whole background, like going nearly through every year, I really can suggest or recommend the Morris you did with the podcast you did with AJ Morris. You did 2 there, the one all about you, all about your personal history, which is very, very interesting, which I can really recommend for anybody who wants to know about more about you, about the UKDFBA in general. And the second one, which we will pick some parts also at this time, this podcast, is to talk about the new partner of the UKDFBA. And Lee, what's happening there at the moment, and what's the plan with your new partner?
Well, see, it's been a bit of a recent hot topic on social media that we've been around for 10 years. We've been promoting strictly natural bodybuilding for 10 years. As an aside to that, there were 7 years before I formed the UKDFBA when I worked with another drug-free sanctioning body here in the UK called the NPA. Which is one of the older and longer established ones. I was the equivalent of maybe the vice president in that association. And the thing that motivated me to start the UKDFBA was that I believed that there were more and better opportunities out there for athletes that we weren't going to be taking as an association that I was with before, like I touched on in AJ's sort of background podcast last year. So we formed our own association. And I think 10 years on, we've pretty much come to the same point again, where I think there are different things to explore, different opportunities that we can take, new titles to be won, new people to make friends with, new countries to visit. And, change is good. Evolution is good. It's good to do new things and have new opportunities. And if there's one thing I've learned from the close to 30 years I've spent in the sport, well, this year is 30 years since I picked up my first barbell and thought about wanting to be a bodybuilder. The things that I've experienced in those 30 years, I could probably write a book on. And
maybe you should.
Well, maybe. Who knows? Maybe I've already started.
Oh.
There's been a lockdown all year. I've had to find something to fill my time with. So, I'm a big believer in the whole pay it forward philosophy.
Yep.
If he's done a good thing for you, then pass that on and do a good thing for somebody else. And one of the things I've been the most lucky with in the last 30 years is that I am essentially, an average guy. I never had great genetics to be a competitor in the sport. I never had a great environment to be a competitor in the sport. When I was younger, especially, resources in terms of finance and the ability to get to train and things. They were very limited, but I got a lot of help along the way. People sort of saw that I had a genuine enthusiasm for what I was doing. The first show that I promoted, I got a lot of help from other show promoters that wanted to help me and see me do well on my path. A lot of the opportunities I've had, I've taken have been made available to me by people who've done that with the best of intentions. And I've always said that no matter what, the only thing that we can do in life is the right thing. And if I reward people by giving them the opportunities that I've been given or more, then it's kind of the least I can do for all of the things that have been done for me over the years.
Yep. Yeah, I can just say you did a really, really good job over the last years. I mean, I don't know anything you did before the UKDFBA because I'm just too young and I'm into active competitive bodybuilding since I think 2013. But back then I didn't know there were something like natural affiliations. So I just did my first show at the IFBB in 2015. Okay. And after that, I just learned more and more and more. Also that there's competitions for natural athletes here in Austria and also like Germany. And through my coach back then, 2017, Valentin Temposi, I got also introduced into the new world of the worldwide or at least European-wide bodybuilding. And I think since 2017, I'm following the UKDFBA, and I'm really, really liking all the shows you put up there. I really have a high admiration of all the athletes who are competing there. It's just really high and dense classes, which are very good quality. So like all the friends who did the show just give me so much positive feedback about how the whole show is running, about the tanning, about everything just you do there, about the whole experience. That's also the reason why I want or will compete this year at the UKDFBA if it's possible. And yeah, I also think the new affiliation, so the new partnership is also good for all the UK competitors because now they got so many more options here in Europe. I also like the trend how more and more federations are now teaming up with the INBA, PNBA, because that means just as a natural competitor, you don't have to care about anymore competing at a different federation and being punished for that, because maybe somebody doesn't like to see that. And if there's only one big natural bodybuilding federation, which would be the best case, for me at least, you don't have to care about politics and stuff like that. So the athletes from the Federation XY is competing there and there, and we can't let him win because that would mean our athletes are not good or something like that. But yeah, like how the whole, at least in Europe, how everything is a little bit changing, and hope that this will bring some good competitors here in Europe to compete at different shows, and also that you get to measure up with them, to stand on the same stage with them, and just to have nice shows and really nice competitions there.
Yeah, and a lot of what you say makes a lot of sense, and there's some things that you pulled out there that are quite significant points. I mean, you mentioned you competed in Germany in a drug-free tested show. I'm guessing that was GNBF.
I did not. I competed in 2017 at the INBF, the Austrian Natural Bodybuilding Federation, the INBA in Hungary, and and I did also the PNBA Natural Mr. Olympia in Vegas. Okay,
right. But like I say, you've got something over in Germany there, haven't you? The GNBF. You've heard of the GNBF?
Yeah, for sure. My girlfriend is a judge there, so.
Perfect. Well, I mean, Beren Breitenstein, who's the founder and the owner of the GNBF, is an old friend of mine. I sat and had dinner with him in New York 10 years ago.
Cool.
Love him. I had the pleasure of meeting his father, Kurt, who was there with him at the time. Great guys. Beren does a fantastic job in Germany. He pulls a couple of shows every year with 300 competitors in them. He's heavily involved in the education of the sport as well, with the training, the nutrition, helping people understand the drug-free path through the sport. We're going to be working with him now that we're with INBA, PNBA. He's part of the European network, and I can't wait to see Beren again. It's been a long time since I've had the chance to catch up with him, and he's a great guy. Like you said, there'll always be different sanctioning bodies around. People will go and compete where they choose. Some people will choose one over the other. Some people will choose all of them. It really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. And like you say, politics is a bad thing. People can't come to you and be judged on being a member of another association. And I use this this kind of metaphor in the podcast with AJ last week when we announced the partnership change. And the metaphor I used was, and I know Mark Oakes is going to chuckle at this one because he's terrified of the thought of me actually owning a Burger King franchise. If I owned a Burger King franchise, I wouldn't tell you to go and eat at McDonald's. I want you to come and eat at Burger King because that's my franchise. But at the same time, if you come in for a burger, I'm not going to say you can't buy a burger here because you ate in McDonald's last week. That's pathetic. It's a stupid attitude. It doesn't work in business. It doesn't work in satisfying a customer base, and it shouldn't exist in bodybuilding. When you've competed with the IFBB over, was that in Austria?
Yeah.
I mean, again, I'll touch on that. I've got friends who run the amateur, the historically formed part of the IFBB. I know there was some division there, but the IFBB as we know it, the real IFBB that was founded back in the 60s. The people who run the arm of that in the UK, Bill and Wanda, are good friends of mine. I've sat around a table and I've drunk. Well, I say I've drunk beer with them. Wanda drank coffee. She doesn't drink, but they're my friends, and they promote different bodybuilding to what I promote. But we still love bodybuilding. I've been over to Spain twice to watch the World Masters Championships with the IFBB, and they were incredible shows. And I got to meet some real famous people. I got to meet Pavel Filiborn. I got to meet Rafael Santoya. Legends. And there's no need for division. I'm not going to go out of my way to promote other avenues of the sport and tell people not to come and support me because you should support them instead. Because as long as I'm doing the right thing and I think I'm offering a good platform for people to compete in, then I'm not going to encourage them not to be here. But at the same time, I'm not going to punish people because they have been somewhere else. It's that's like the day I met my wife, I refused to date her because she had a boyfriend before me. Well, you can't have this attitude in life. It's wrong. So it's good. It's good to be out there. It's good to know what there is on offer. It's good to choose what's best for you, whether that's one thing or a number of things. And And again, like I said on the podcast with AJ, 95% of the people that compete in our contests here in the UK compete here and only here, in terms of they don't go abroad, they don't compete internationally. So it makes no difference who we're affiliated to. As long as our contests offer them a platform that they enjoy being part of, then that's all they're looking for.
Yeah, I actually hope that will change a little bit, so that more guys of the UK come out and compete at the INBA Europes, at the Worlds, which are hosted now here in Europe, which would be a great platform and a great stage for them to compete there as well. Just because you see yourself under different judges, you get a different experience there. You maybe stand next to athletes you wouldn't stand next to when you're only competing at the UKDFBA. Also, I think the overall experience you get just doing like the overall the travel to a different country, meet so many very nice new people. It's just a very, very pleasant experience there. Yes. And I would recommend that to everybody to try to do as many shows as possible, because I don't know how the athletes in the UK are doing this. If they're only like going for the UKDFBA pathway, which means probably doing a regional show and then try to qualify there for the finals and then just do the finals, or are there some other shows which the natural UKDFBA athletes are doing there?
I mean, if there are other shows in the UK that some people choose to do, and they always will do, whether they're specific drug-tested shows or whether they're shows that don't overtly advertise any drug testing. People compete wherever they like. You're right when you say that there will be more people competing throughout Europe now, but it's important to note that our selection process for our national team, and this is one of the big pieces of our ethos, and it goes back a little bit to what you said earlier about the quality of the athletes competing here in the UK as well. It goes back that our amateur bodybuilders are very strong and of a very high standard in this country, because unlike a lot of other countries, the path to moving on to the next level is a lot slower and a lot more stringent. In the United States, for example, with a lot of sanctioning bodies, you can enter a bodybuilding show for the first time ever, win a class that's got 3 people in it, and then you're a pro. So all of the good bodybuilders are pros over there. The amateur level's not as good. Whereas the reason that, guys are coming over from other countries to compete with us in our international event, and they're up against really strong opposition, because these people aren't just turning pro the first year that they compete. I've got guys in the UKDFBA who've been competing 10, 15, 20 years, and they're still amateurs. And having that strong network of amateur shows in Europe, the European Championships, the Hungarian Grand Prix, which is a fantastic one, the Worlds, which is generally held in Europe every year, before we move over to the States and think about tackling the Natural Olympia. Those shows have got strong amateur lineups, and I'm going to encourage people to do them. But the qualification process won't change. We've always believed that to represent your country as part of the association, that has to be special. That has to be something that you see as a big achievement, something as a privilege, So you've still got to place very high and have a good track record here in the UK before you're going to be representing the association at a European Championship or a World Championship, simply because it's got to mean something. In any other sport, I can't just take up track athletics tomorrow and enter the Olympics. Yep. The qualification process is something you've got to do. I can't just call up my local boxing promoter and tell them I've decided I'm going to be a pro boxer. There's a vetting process. There's a process to make sure that only the people that are good enough to do that do that. And I believe that's one of the problems that bodybuilding has as a sport, is that structure and that hierarchy and that privilege is not there.
Could you maybe explain a little bit how the whole process is at the on the one side for guys from the UK who wants to compete at the Europes, at the Worlds, or something like that, what do they have to do to qualify for that?
Under the current structure that we've got, we have regional events that act as qualifying contests for our nationals. If you compete at our nationals, typically the winner of the national championships will qualify to be a member of the team. Going forwards with more contests and more opportunities, we might expand that qualification process and make the first 2 or the first 3 in various classes eligible to be part of the UK team. And it's then and only then that you take the next step and go on to sort of international level, European World Championships, the big international Grand Prix events, because we want to make sure that you're good enough to be there as well.
Yep.
So some people compete for fun. That's great. If I ever competed again, I'd be competing for fun because I'm not going to win anything.
Yep.
My parents decided that when they handed my genetics to me. It is what it is. But at the same time, there's a big difference between having a little bit of fun, competing in an event relatively local to you with your friends and family watching and cheering for you, than investing several £1,000s to jump on a plane, travel to the other side of the world, and stand in a lineup where you don't look like you belong. That's not fun.
Yep.
We don't want that to happen to people. So we want to, with any sanctioning body that we are part of, there will always be that qualification process to make sure that you're at a certain standard before you go and say, I'm here representing the United Kingdom and I'm competing for a European title, a Grand Prix title, a world title, the Olympia title. Only the best athletes need to have that opportunity. And that's another reason why every international contest we've ever contested, we've always done very well at, because we pick the right athletes to go and contest them.
Yep. But are you now only speaking for the people who are like you sending and supporting? So that's that the UKDFBA affiliation is covering all the expenses of the trip and of the athletes, or is that for everybody? So does every guy who wants to compete outside of the UK have to email you and ask, hey Lee, I'm good enough to compete at the European level, or is it okay to do a regional show, win the regional show, and then you can also go abroad?
The qualification process will always be the same. You have to place high at a national level event before you are selected for one of our international teams. Historically, we have invested a huge amount of money. The association doesn't run for a profit. Nobody gets paid. Nobody makes any money out of it. We all do it for passion and for enthusiasm in what we're doing. And all of the money that the association generates is used to, once everything's paid for, obviously running a bodybuilding contest, particularly a drug-free one's very expensive. But any money that's left over once the contests are over with is spent on sponsoring athletes to go abroad. Because again, it's my belief and it's my ethos that if you're being invited to go and represent your country, and you're being given that very special opportunity and that privilege of saying you've been chosen to go and represent your country, to ask you to pay for it yourself it's not ideal. It's not ideal. There may come a year when financially the association doesn't have enough money to pay for people to go abroad, and if that ever happens, then it happens. But we will always do the absolute best to sponsor or to meet at least some of the costs of those overseas contests for our athletes. And I think that's an investment that we're giving back to them for putting the work in to get to the standard to be chosen in the first place.
Yep.
That selection process to represent this internationally will always be there. Whether it's, like I say, whether it's fully, partly funded by us, you still have to meet that standard. You're representing our association at the end of the day.
Yep.
If somebody wants to go abroad and compete without going through that, there are plenty of places that can do it. There are hundreds of show promoters all over the world who will accept your entry if you want to hop on a plane and go and compete in their show. That's perfectly fine. We'd never stop anybody from doing that. But through our affiliation, through our partnerships, if you got in touch with an INBA affiliate across Europe tomorrow and said, we want to compete in your show, they should say you have to come through the UK route first.
Yeah.
But it's the same as when we have our international contest in October. You will know that I'm respectful of the fact that all of the UK athletes at this point have got to qualify to be part of that. So if I get an email from an international athlete saying I want to come over and compete in the show, then I put a stipulation on them. I say, okay, you are more than welcome to come and compete in the contest if you meet the required standard. I need to see some pictures of you, preferably a picture from the last contest that you entered, because it's not really a show for a first timer to be competing in, as you've seen.
Yeah.
So I prefer people with a contest history. I prefer people who meet the required standard. And if an athlete is not of the standard where they would have been invited through one of our regionals if they could have competed in it, then I will usually politely tell them that, unfortunately, this isn't the show for you.
Yep. Is it possible to compete as an international athlete at a regional show?
No.
Okay.
Currently, the structure is that we have between 500 and 600 members here in the UK that want to compete with us on a normal year. Obviously, 2020 blew that one out of the water. But on a normal year, there are 500 or 600 people that want to compete with us. We can't put them all into one national level event. So the reason we have regional qualifying contests is to make sure that the best of them get through, and that we fill the national championships with the correct standard of athletes.
Yep.
That might change in the future. We might go back to having open events,
But are the regionals now only on a national level? So, if I want to compete at the UKDFBA at one of the regional shows, because I'm not sure if I'm ready for the international finals, for example, would that be an option, or is it exclusive for the UK athletes?
They're exclusively for UK athletes, yes.
Okay.
The way that you would get to the international show would be through that screening process.
Okay.
There are a number of reasons for that, which I can explain if you want me to.
Yeah, no, I really like that. I think it's very, very important to have, if you have one international show or one final show, that meets a certain standard. So that's what I really like at the UKDFBA, because you don't really see at the finals anybody who is out of shape, anybody who is who just doesn't belong on that stage, because he maybe doesn't know what a bodybuilding contest really is, and just signed up for the fun of it, or just because somebody in the gym told him, hey, you look muscular, you look ripped, try to compete at a natural bodybuilding show. And that's a thing you see a lot during very big events like some of the Worlds or on the big stages, when you can see there signed up people to put them on the stage who are clearly out of shape, who maybe don't have a tan or something like that, which are just a little bit disrespectful maybe for all the other competitors who are competing there. I mean, if they don't do that, I think most of the people who do that don't really have bad faith in that, but some people really want to have a good competition and want to compete next to guys who are also that dedicated and put in the work that is necessary to stand on the stage. And it's a little bit, I think just not optimal to have the biggest show of the year, for example, of the federation, where the athletes don't look like it's the best of the best that the country or the federation has to offer. And I really like something like a screening process where you can just filter out or can get experience also for the bigger shows. Because the next good thing about that is, as an athlete, you have the chance to get some feedback from judges, some feedback from pictures standing next to each other, get some stage experience, and you can do better and better at every show, instead of just doing like one show and then everything is over, and maybe you just blew it because of some things you didn't know, because some poses changed, or you weren't as lean as you thought you would be standing on stage and stuff like that. So
yeah, I mean, I don't think. I mean, I've been that guy, you know, going back to 1993 when I did my first contest. I was the guy that was out of shape and had no tan, you know, because I didn't know what bodybuilding was. And somebody at the gym said to me, I'm competing in this show, you should come compete in it too. And I thought, okay, maybe I'm ready for this. And I got there and realised that I wasn't ready for it.
Yep.
I'll never disrespect anybody that's in the same position, because not everybody can be a national champion. Not everybody can be a world champion. Not everybody can be a great bodybuilder. You know, much the same as not everybody can, you know, kick a soccer ball around a field as a kid and then be a pro footballer one day. You know, not everybody can run fast enough to be an Olympic sprinter. These aren't things that, you know, what you are made to do is a big part of this. And I don't think that people who compete looking out of shape or sort of out of their depth are disrespectful to the process or disrespectful to the other athletes. So I sort of disagree with that.
Maybe
there's any malice involved in it. I just don't think it's worth their time to go straight into big events that they're not ready for. But in all honesty, for the first 5 years that we ran the association, our national championships was an open event. And we did have people competing in it that maybe weren't ready for a national level event. But they were treated the same, with the same respect. They were welcomed just the same. They were given the same stage time, and they were judged just as carefully. It's just that we have far too many people now in order to have. I can't have 500 people in a bodybuilding contest. So we have to break it down somehow. We have to, you know.
Yeah, for sure. I think I just put it a little bit badly here. I think the problem, like, also with that is, like I said, because you need to strip down the numbers on stage, because you can't have like 40 guys in one or girls in one class.
No.
And it's very, very unsatisfying if you're one of the guys who gets eliminated at first. So you go on stage for like maybe 5 minutes at max, and then your whole show is over, which like, I think maybe I can put it a little bit better there. It would be better to do like a regional show that's probably not that big and not that competitive, to get all the experience, to get the comparisons, to get the stage time, instead of just jumping to a world show, which is also like probably way more expensive, or an international show. And to maybe get a bad or worse experience there than you could get at a smaller, more local show. I think it's also a little bit like a problem, maybe not really a problem, because I think many athletes here I know at least, want to compete at the biggest shows in the first year. And they don't really have the experience. Like I said, they don't really have maybe the genetics and everything. And maybe they put in the work and really take out the best, but still the whole experience and everything they get out of that, they could probably get at way more, at a way cheaper level at just doing a local show, instead of, like I said, buying a plane ticket, going abroad, checking in a hotel, staying there for 1 week just to do a show for 5 minutes stage time, because you're just not ready for a big event yet.
Well, but then that option looks much more exciting on Instagram, doesn't it?
Yeah, for
sure. So the social media world, people want to pretend that they're famous. And I do come in for some criticism for sticking to the old-fashioned roots. You know, people do complain, you know, well, not complain, but people choose not to be part of the path that we're offering because they don't get where they want to get fast enough. And, you know, to tell somebody, sorry, you're not going to come onto the international team because you're not there yet, level-wise, some people take that quite badly, and some people take it as an insult. But, you know, you ski in Austria, don't you? You know, there's snow in Austria. People go there to ski.
Yep.
You know, so I'll make a skiing comparison. You know, if I went to, and I know nothing about skiing. I don't ski. I've never skied in my life, and I don't plan to ever. I don't have any motivation to do it. But if I came to Austria to a ski resort, never wore a pair of skis in my life before, I wouldn't come onto a ski resort, hire some gear, and then jump on a ski lift and go straight to the top of the black slope, because I'll be dead before I reach the bottom.
Yeah.
If I start boxing, train for a while and then think, I'm gonna jump straight in with Tyson Fury or Anthony Joshua, then I'm going to get really badly hurt very quickly. And you don't jump straight in at the top level with any other sport, but people expect to do it with bodybuilding. And I think part of the reason for that is that you don't get hurt. That they know that there's nothing to lose. They're not going to get hurt. They can always justify what they've done. They can say, yeah, I came 15th in this contest, but it was my first show, or I'd only been training 6 months or whatever. People are still going to click the like button on Instagram. You've still got an interesting story to tell. And if that's what motivates people, then fine, fine. Go do that, but you won't do that here.
Yeah.
But by the time you win the national title with our association, you will know beyond a shadow of a doubt that you've earned that title. If you pull on our team jacket and go to an international event as part of our team, you will feel the genuine pride of being one of the elite athletes in your own country who has been selected and sponsored to go and compete in one of those events. And if, unfortunately, you're one of those athletes who, sends me an email from another nation to say, I really want to compete in your contest, and I reply to say, I don't think this is the contest for you. Go build up a little bit of experience somewhere else and then come back to us again. Unfortunately, if you are that person, then I hope that you're not offended, and I hope that you see that ethos that we're trying to breed is for you. It's for the athlete. It's to give you the right opportunities and to give you the right path to develop on and enjoy the sport. It's nobody ever got to the top straight away, and it is what it is. I say it is what it is all the time. It's kind of like a stock phrase for me, but and like I said, it could change. Last year, 2020, we weren't able to run any qualifying events because the whole country was on lockdown. Venues were closed. We had to do a huge amount of work to have the one venue that would let us have a show, and it became an open entry contest. There were no qualifying contests for that. So I extended the same courtesy to anybody who could come internationally. I haven't made people in the UK qualify for this contest, so I could not do that to people from overseas. And the athletes that entered from overseas last year were able to enter purely on the basis that they were eligible to enter in terms of being drug-free and being in the right divisions to compete in. So it's not an unfair process. It's not one rule for one rule for the other. We'll always have the same rule for every athlete.
I think everybody who disagrees with you can prove you wrong, and then maybe just do another show before the UKDFBA and maybe showcase the skills then there. Maybe that you're that good, and also that comes a little bit back how good the show is, because I know for my very first shows were placed first because there were only 2 people at my class, so it's not really that hard to make a top 3 placement. But yeah, I think at least I have the feeling that the screening process and everything, and with your background and your knowledge, you won't get anybody get an unfair advantage or disadvantage. And also it means that just the UKDFBA-Athletes comes first, which is also like totally relatable, because you just want your own guys in your own country to be able to compete at your show before maybe taking on a lot of international competitors to fill up the classes, and that maybe don't bring that much quality at all. And yeah, like I said, I think it just comes down a lot to the individual level where they're coming from. I think when everything is back to normal and you can allow or is able to do bigger shows again, because I think this year it could be that the numbers will maybe still a little bit downsized.
Maybe a little, yeah.
Then when there are just limited places available, there has to be a decision of who can compete and who not.
Yeah, and let me make something clear as well, that this process that we've just talked about of sort of screening people and selecting them international, from international countries, that only really applies to a country where we don't have a partnership with another association.
Yep.
So, for example, we've spoken about the GNBF, we've spoken about Bahrain's organisation already.
Yep.
So, if a bunch of athletes from Germany wanted to come and compete in our international championships, then as long as Bahrain says, yeah, this is my team, they're coming, then I don't screen that team. There's no screening process there, but I trust an international partner like Bahrain in Germany, Mark Lee over in Ireland, who we work in the same network as, if he sends me athletes over to the UK to compete in my show, I don't ask to have a look at them first, because they're his athletes, they're his team. They've been selected along the same process that my athletes get selected to go abroad, and I trust that. I've had some athletes from countries where we have had a partnership before, where the sanctioning body heads, the presidents, of the governing bodies there have said, these 3 athletes are coming to you, and maybe those 3 athletes weren't the best athletes, and maybe they weren't quite ready for that level of competition. However, I trust my international partners; they pick their own teams. So the process that we've just spoken about is pretty much like you're in Austria at the moment, and we don't have an affiliate partnership with the INBF.
Yep.
I'd more than welcome one, but I believe the INBF have their own direction, and they affiliate where they affiliate. We don't work together. So any athletes from Austria, for example, who tend to be Das Gym athletes, they're the guys that we've had in the contests. I will ask Valentin, for example, to oversee that team and make sure that only the right team come over. So in the case of an Austrian athlete now, because I have a connection in that country, send me who you want to send, but the standard that they need to be at. And then as a nation, as Austrian bodybuilders, you're all very sort of aware of not putting yourself into a contest you're not ready for yet anyway. So I know you guys are all going to be ready when you come. I'm talking more about, countries where, like I say, I have no affiliation. I had a guy from South Africa come over a couple of years ago. I asked for his contest history before he came. I had a guy from the United States come over, and he competed with a local show promoter over there that I had a relationship with, and they said, yeah, I'm happy with him coming over and representing us. He maybe wasn't, that both those guys maybe weren't at the right standard, but they both had the backing of people to come over. What we don't want is people wasting a lot of time and a lot of money for that experience. It's okay. You know where I'm going with it all.
Yeah. I think now the last part was very important. Thanks for clarifying that. So I will just try to sum it up. It's like if you got an INBA federation in your own country, probably talk to the show promoter there and just tell them I'm planning or want to compete at the UKDFBA. So what would be my rules? What do I have to do to be able to compete there? Maybe they will send out a whole team from that federation. And if you have no INBA federation in your country, like it is in Austria, where we don't have an affiliate here, then we just probably text you directly and okay.
And I'll be honest with you. I will be honest with any athlete who gets in touch. If they want to come and compete in our international contest, and I don't think it's a great idea for them, then I'll be honest with them, and I'll be respectful about that.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe let us jump to a little bit of a different topic now.
Sure.
Just because now with a new affiliate, you are also making some tweaks at some classes and some posing at some classes. I think at men's bodybuilding, which is a huge change, is that you are going away from the weight divisions and going to the height divisions, which I really like personally, because I think, especially natural bodybuilding, most of the guys tend to fall into the weight class where you just can divide the height minus 100, which is a little, which is the state rate at the most time. And also like some other changes, like in the men's physique, there are now the flex poses included instead of just the quarter turns. How you're standing to all of this, and are there some other bigger changes here and there?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that pretty much sums it up. The addition of the couple of poses in the men's physique division is something that's governed by the INBA. They have those extra poses. They actually have a couple more poses than the ones that we've introduced in the UK, but we've added the ones that we think will benefit our athletes, and then anybody that goes to compete internationally can just learn a couple more. It's easy, but yeah, the whole sort of display of a little bit more. It's not to display more muscularity; it's to display more of the aesthetic quality of the physique with the poses that we've included, and I think that's a big part of men's physique. Is a men's physique competitor needs to be aesthetically pleasing, and we think that's a good thing, that we're going to be able to help the guys display themselves a little bit better with that. Bodybuilding going to height classes. Now that's a big one for me, because I've had a real fundamental issue for years now with bodybuilding morphing into a dieting contest. Now I'm going to put a caveat on the front of this.
Yep.
I do not want bodybuilders to stop getting into shape. Okay? I want you to be in good shape. I want you to have low body fat levels. I want you to be cut. I want you to, diet down if you need to diet down. Some guys are in shape all year round, so, not everybody will. But, there is no emphasis on not being in shape for a bodybuilding contest. The emphasis is here, and I'm going to give you a prime example. And I know that he won't mind me talking about this because he's somebody that I've worked closely with a number of years. Ben Howard. Now, Ben's got a reputation for getting into fantastic condition. Yeah?
Yeah, it's like no skin at all at the end.
Sure. The last time Ben competed, he was in the same condition, 3 kilos heavier.
Yeah.
But he lost 3 kilos of muscle to make a weight division.
Okay.
That's stupid. It was what we had to do at the time. It was what we had to do at the time to compete in the division where we believe that he was best placed, and that's that. But it's a terrible practice. We spend years building this muscle. We spend a lot of effort training to grow muscle. We spend a lot of money on food and nutritional aids to help us do it. Why are we losing it to compete in a contest to show how good we've got? It's stupid. It's completely back to front. It's ridiculous. There are guys who have done it at the amateur level as well. They've worked to get down into a weight division, and the focus getting ready for the contest has been making the weight division, not making themselves look better.
Yep.
And that's gone now. That's finished. That era is gone as far as the UKDFBA is concerned. We're not telling people to weigh less anymore. It's unhealthy. You can be in great shape but be bigger and fuller, and that's what we want now. We want people to maximize on their frame. We want people to maximize on their God-given structure. Stringy people and people that are about to keel over on stage because they dieted too hard. No need for that anymore. It's gone. Some people, it won't benefit everybody, because everywhere in the world there is that one guy who's a 5'10" lightweight.
Yeah,
5'10" lightweight is now in the tall class. You know, it is what it is. I know that a vast minority of people will not feel the benefit of this change. But I mean, I say 5'10", it's about five. Somebody who's 5'10" would be in the medium class, but you know where I'm coming from.
Yeah. Yep.
There may be a guy that competes at 75 kilos who's in the short class. It is what it is. You know, these contests are about judging the best bodybuilder, not the person who's lost the most weight.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I also like it very much because, like I said, you don't have to care about your weight at all. So you don't do any stupid peaking strategies to weigh in at your lowest weight and try to carb up in a record time of maybe just a few hours. Just to be in a weight class. And like I said before, I really like that phrase. You don't really show up in your best as shape, but you just try to make weight for the show. And that's not the point of the bodybuilding show. The point is to get your best package on stage and try to showcase what you've worked for the last years, decades, which time frame you're putting in the work.
Of course. And it's, you know, you say it's not the point of the bodybuilding show. It's not the point of bodybuilding, full stop. It's a fairly simple pursuit. And the name tells you everything you need to know. It's bodybuilding. If anybody's listening to the podcast that needs me to explain that to them, then inbox me. You know. But yeah, it's, you know, you got to be focusing on building the best physique that you can, and it's not just about conditioning. Conditioning is important. Being in the right shape is important. But there have been times in the past when people have won bodybuilding contests just because they have more lines in their ass than everybody else in the lineup. And sometimes the best bodybuilder in the division has ended up several places down because they didn't get more lines in their ass, and it's not right.
What would you say? What is the UKDFBA looking for in general in an athlete?
We are looking for the best bodybuilder to win. The best bodybuilder. So, yes, we want you to be in shape. Yes, if you flex your quads and we just see one smooth quad, then yeah, we want to see lines. We want to see separations in between the muscles. We want to see your body fat levels low enough so there's a little bit of surface vascularity, perhaps. If you're somebody that shows surface vascularity, you know, when you turn around to the rear, if your trunks are digging into your backside, you know, that deep because there's so much flesh still there, we know that you're out of shape. You know, we know that you've still got fat you need to lose, but you don't need to have a rock hard set of glutes with inch deep lines on them. You know, that doesn't make your physique any better. That doesn't make your physique any better. You need to be ripped. You need to be in shape. You know, you've always needed to be in condition to win a bodybuilding contest, right back to the 70s. You know, people who are out of shape don't win shows. But it's not just about conditioning. You know, the physique that we're presented with in good shape has got to be the overall deciding factor.
Yeah, I'm totally on the side there. I think there's already like a small and slow shift going away from the conditioning only natural bodybuilding and going slowly into the more like more filled up physiques, let's call them, where you got that good balance. I think, like you tried to describe, between you still got good separations, good vascularity, but you still got the fullness, the muscles popping, and not just a stringy physique where you're just like sacrificing most of your muscle mass just to get the last 1 or 2 kilos down to get the glutes free.
And this is an important question. We'll move away from the context. This question is not going to be about the association, about judging, about bodybuilding contests. Let's talk about this coach to coach. I don't advertise my services as a coach online or in person because I have a job. I have a very busy life that takes me 60 hours a week to get my wage earned from work every week. I don't have time to do any coaching. every year, 1 or 2 people might come to me for a bit of help with contest prep. Generally not for shows that I'm promoting, generally for other contests, which pretty much cements as well the fact that I don't sort of stop people from competing in other shows. But I know that my profile as a coach is not as high as yours. This is your business. You are a coach. Coaching is something that I have some experience in and do a little bit on the side. But from a coach to coach perspective, talk to me about how that affects people coming out of a contest. Because if you're getting yourself to the point where you've got nothing in between your skin and your muscle, the rest of your body's suffering as well. And these guys, I know guys who've come to me to try a different prep strategy because the last time they prepped for a show, it took them 6 months or 12 months to recover from that contest prep.
Yep.
Do you find that? I mean, how do you feel about that as a coach? Should we be doing things to people that take them 6 months to recover from?
Yeah, I think the whole natural bodybuilding realm is answering that problem with just trying to compete not as frequently. So instead of doing shows every year or every 2 years, you're just pushing the time frame and only competing every 3rd or 4th year, just because, like I said, you need like half a year to prep for the show, another half year to recover from the show. So you're still probably after 1 year after you started dieting at the worst point when you started your prep for the first show. Then you get like a half year, maybe 1 year to improve. So you have a 1 year improvement season. There you shouldn't cut at all, but most guys want to be in shape, still have probably want to have abs year round, and so they don't just build up 1 year round. So they probably cut down there a little bit too. So they're only like improving maybe 8 months out of 12. Then you already lost 2 years, and then you start prepping again, which is already half a year long. So I think that's the answer from the natural bodybuilding realm. If it, I wouldn't say it's optimal. I think it would be much better if there would be a way to get that standard in, so you can compete more frequently and don't have to diet down as hard. Especially, I mean, as a man, it's maybe you can get away with that over the long term, but as a woman, you can really do some changes on your hormonal structures and everything, and maybe you are sacrificing a lot more than just 1-2 years from your lifetime, but maybe a whole different life you don't know you want, or still you aren't able to get anymore just because you did diet down too hard and too long for that.
And you know what? I'm gonna come on to that a little bit in a second, but the answer that the natural bodybuilding community has given to this problem isn't an answer to the problem, in my view. I think they need to solve the problem itself. I once had a guy who was in his early 20s come to me and have a conversation with me. We were talking about other things. I asked him a few questions about his contest prep, relevant to some decisions that he'd made in changing. He changed from bodybuilding to physique, and he was a great bodybuilder. And I said, why did you choose the physique route? What was it that appealed to you about the physique route? And he said to me that when I competed as a bodybuilder, as a teenage bodybuilder, and he won a national title, not with me, but with another country's governing body. When I won the teenage nationals, it was great. But I didn't sleep properly for 3-4 weeks before the contest. And then this is a 19-year-old kid who went on to tell me that he lost his erectile function, both before and after the competition for several months. At 19 years old, when your body's raging with hormones, people are telling me that basic bodily functions, and I know we all get embarrassed talking about things like libido and erectile function and sex drive and things. This isn't a conversation about the sex and stuff, but it is a function of the human body that we need to preserve. And you've touched on that with female competitors that damage their menstrual cycle, damage their fertility, cause cause issues for themselves in that respect that they might regret later on in life. Why are people carrying out practices that are harmful to basic functions of the body? It should not happen. And instead of tackling that problem by not doing it anymore, some people are tackling the problem by saying, well, just do it once every 4 years. It doesn't make it any better or any healthier just because we're only doing it once every 4 years. It needs to stop. Most people could get themselves within 5% of being in that kind of state physically, which is very close, by doing absolute minimal disruption or damage, or giving minimal disruption to their basic body functions, their hormone makeup, their endocrine system. They can recover from that. When I used to compete, and I only really got in shape the last couple of times I competed, it was something I always really struggled with, which is one of the reasons I learned so much about training, nutrition and the like, because I needed to know this stuff because I was using it on myself. But the last time I competed in a bodybuilding contest back in 1998, I was pretty much there condition-wise to what I needed to be. Everybody can be, you can peel somebody's skin off if you want to. That'll make them look harder, but it's not a good thing. So I was there. Nobody could say I was out of shape. And I can honestly say, within a week, 2 weeks of the contest, I was fine again. I was a little bit tired for the first week, a little bit of disruption to my stomach because I was eating things that I hadn't eaten for a while. But, took a week off training after my contest, after 20 weeks of dieting, went back to the gym and felt absolutely fantastic. Why can't people do that? The answer is not only compete once every 4 years but still damage your body. The answer is don't damage your body and actually enjoy the sport that you're competing in.
But do you think that's the
my
problem?
Answer.
But do you think really the athletes should tackle that, or is it more like a judging problem? Because, like you mentioned before, very shortly, it's at least at the powers, it was that conditioning got rewarded. So that the leaner you got, probably the heavier you look on stage, and that the better your placing will be. So.
Not necessarily. It's the bodybuilding judges, and I'll come on to judging in a minute because you did say something earlier about the judging process that I want to touch on. But bodybuilding judges can only reward what's put in front of them. If everybody chooses to get in ridiculous condition, and everybody is in ridiculous condition, then they will reward the best physique who's in that ridiculous condition. That's all they've got left to judge. There are some judges who do not know enough about bodybuilding, and I'm not talking about my own judging panels because we're very careful about who we pick to be on them, but there are some judges that don't know enough about how to assess a physique properly to look at the distinct differences between physiques, and they just go for the path of least resistance and pick guys and girls who are in better condition. That's a problem that needs to stop. Bodybuilders need educating, judges need educating, everybody needs education in the sport. It's like you said to me earlier, you don't know much about what happened pre our existence because you haven't been around in the sport that long. Well, I can tell you every man in every order that ever won the Mr. Olympia title, and I wasn't born in 1965. Let's be educated. Become a student of the sport. Become passionate about the sport at the very deepest level and find out as much as you can about it. Enjoy it. The stuff that you scroll, I don't mean you, but I mean the stuff that people scroll through on Instagram now, most of it's garbage. Go and find some good resources. Get on YouTube and type in, I'll give you an example search, 1985 Mr. Universe. Key that in as a YouTube search, see what it brings up. Have a look at what bodybuilding was like in 85. Have a look and remember the names of the people that were winning that title. You'll enjoy it. If I've ever got a day when I haven't got anything to do, I just spend the day watching old bodybuilding video footage on YouTube, because you can fall down a rabbit hole with that stuff and learn so much. And you can look at people, you can look at people that were winning titles back in those days and say, hold on a minute, they're better than the people that are competing now. How's that progress? And then you can see the differences. Why are those people better? They're better because they focused on the quality of their physique. They're better because they didn't sacrifice muscle mass for condition. They're better because they didn't sacrifice aesthetics for size. And you can piece all of that together in your own head, and you can teach. You can be self-taught. You can choose to prefer the way that things were. And I promise you now, and I said this to Mark Oakes when we were discussing recently whether to include classic physique in our new show lineup. And we both said, if a bodybuilder turns up with a good physique and a fantastic classic shape that they present really well to us, they're probably going to win in bodybuilding. They don't need a different class.
Yep. Yeah.
We are waiting for these people to present themselves to us. We are waiting to be sitting at that judging table when a lineup of people who look the way we want them to look walks on stage, and we will reward them accordingly. If everybody chooses to diet themselves half to death, lose their job, lose their girlfriend, not sleep for a month, and then spend 6 months after the contest feeling ill, there's nothing we can do to stop that apart from to tell you that you don't need to do it. But people are still going to do it.
Yep.
You know, it's not it's not the only thing that we want to see. It really isn't anything that we want to see. Before we move on, I do want to touch on something that you said about judges earlier. Now we're on the subject of judging. You were talking about competitors competing to get feedback from the judges. My belief is this: a bodybuilding judge sits at the table at the front of a bodybuilding contest for 8-9 hours a day. They can view anywhere from between 50 and 150 or more physiques in that day. Their job is to decide in an arbitrary lineup with 10 people in it. Their job is to decide who is the best of those 10 people and who is the least good, compared to each other on that stage on that day. So they decide who comes first, and they decide who comes 10th, and they decide all the people in the middle. If you go to any bodybuilding judge after a contest and they are able to give you in-depth feedback on your physique, then they haven't been doing their job properly, because they shouldn't remember you. Feedback, and this is a message to all competitors, feedback on your physique comes from looking at the photographs of the event. Don't compare yourself to other people. Look at yourself. If your calves are not big enough to match your thighs, you should see that. If your back is weaker than your front, you should see that. You know what to go and work on. If you can't see it, your coach should see it. If your coach can't see it, then hire a new coach, because you don't have a coach who knows what they're talking about. A bodybuilding judge shouldn't be able to give you specific feedback about your physique.
I mean, they could do the same. The coach should be doing for you is like try to say where you have flaws in the physique, but I'm on your side there. I think when you're judging 8 hours straight on plus, you will be able to remember every physique, every face, everything. And I probably told it more like in the phase that you're getting on stage, that you get comparisons with different physiques.
Yes.
Get just like standing next to each other, because it's really, really easy to get a good light, get a camera and put some good photos of yourself. But it's really hard to look good next to one each other when there are some other great athletes on stage. So,
yeah. And you've got to keep it all in perspective as well. You know, people can sometimes see improving the weaknesses in their physique as a pathway to placing higher in contests. Now, I stood next to a guy in a bodybuilding contest in 1998 that was 3 inches taller than me, about 50 pounds heavier than me, and whose shoulder span was about 1.5 times the size mine was. And somebody could have said to me, if I said to a judge afterwards, why did that guy beat me? they could have just laughed and said, well, you've got eyes in your head. You know the answer to this question. But the crux of the matter is, it was an open class. I was competing as a junior. The guy was bigger, his structure was better, he had wider shoulders than me, he had massive muscle bellies. There was nothing I could do. If I'd have trained every day between then and now, eaten perfectly, rested optimally, done everything I needed to do, I still would not look like that guy. So getting bigger and trying to increase my shoulder width, and I don't know how people do this. I don't know how many people have accessed a bone grafting service to give them a wider shoulder girdle, but there's only a degree of width that you can add to your physique. Your structure dictates this. I could have spent the last, and bearing in mind, this was 1998, so we're looking at 23 years now. I could have spent the last 23 years trying to improve my physique. I still wouldn't look like that guy, and I could probably still get on stage with him today and he'd still beat me. So don't look at improving your physique as a way to get better. You win contests by being the best person in that class, in that contest on that day. I could go and win a world title now, that, a respected, recognized world title with a sanctioning body. And next week, somebody else could win a different association's world title. And, I might think, well, I'm the world champion because I'm better than them. They might think, well, I'm the true world champion because I'm better than them. And if they stood on stage together, we might be just as good as each other, but the judges have to make a decision. That lineup of 10 people might all have practically perfect physiques in good shape. Then we have to just pick who we choose to beat who. It doesn't even mean that people are better than you just because they're beating you. It just means that one judge does. But the judge's job is to arrange the placings on the day of a contest, not to assess your physique. If anybody approaches me for feedback at a bodybuilding show now, I politely decline to give it to them because I'm giving them false information. I'm giving them information that's out of context. If somebody says, well, just tell me why I came second then, my answer will always be, because in our opinion, the guy or girl who won was better than you. That's all a judge can tell you. And anybody that tries to make themselves a fake expert and tell you more than that, they're probably lying to you.
Yeah. I mean, you can't alter genetics and stuff like that. Like you said, you just get what your parents give you. And some are more gifted, some are not as gifted. I mean, that's in every sport, it's like that. I'm, I think, 5'7" or something like that. So I will never be a professional basketball player because I just don't got the
exactly.
hate. Yeah. And I'm not complaining about that. And don't say, "Hi, it's unfair." Like I said, it is what it is. And so I'm just thinking about one phrase you said in one of the podcasts with AJ, and that was like, you're looking for the guy with the most strengths and not the one with the least weaknesses. So would you say like a really balanced physique is still a little bit weaker or not as good as somebody, like I said, who just got that freak factor? Like,
no. A balanced physique where all of the body parts are good is utopia. If you look back at, and let's look back, and I'm going to give you some homework to go away and study names that you haven't studied yet. That's fine. If you ask people who had the best legs in bodybuilding ever, they're going to tell you Tom Platz, Paul DeMeo.
Yep.
That's what they're going to tell you. Well, as an amateur, Chris Cormier, Flex Wheeler, they both beat Paul DeMeo. His legs were better than theirs. Tom Platz never won the Olympia. Arguably, people say he should have won it in 82. I favoured Danny Padilla and Roy Callender in 82. You can go look them up. Everybody says Tom Platz is the man for legs. That's freak factor. It's great. I love to see it. I love to see a great pair of quads on a bodybuilder. It tells me that person is either, even if they've got great genetics for leg development, it tells me that they've worked hard. If somebody's got a huge pair of arms, big biceps, that look like Arnold or Albert Beckles or Robbie Robinson, then it's impressive. It's impressive to look at. And we're never going to tell people not to have impressive body parts. That's what we want to see. But, a balanced physique where every body part is fully developed,
Yeah. I think the keyword is fully developed.
You know, I have a balanced physique now. Every one of my muscle groups is bad. That's a balanced physique. That doesn't get rewarded.
Yeah.
You know, every part of my body is poorly developed, imbalanced. I don't have any weak body parts. You know, so having no weak body parts is relative to how good those body parts are in balance with each other. But we want to see somebody where everything's good, or as many things as possible are as good, because everybody will have a lagging body part somewhere. You know, somebody won't be able to put tissue on their arms or their calves or the top of their chest, or their lats might be high, their thighs might lack a little bit of sweep. That's genetic. So it might be that it's never their strongest body part. But we want to see as many body parts as possible in balance with each other.
Yeah. I think if you look, if you just look at a lot of results from the UKDFBA, from some other world contests and everything, you see the guys who win there are the guys who are probably strong everywhere and not just at one body part. And I mean, that's like saying a little bit, he got the most strength and not the least weaknesses. They go hand in hand. So if every body part is a strength, then there are no weaknesses. But you can have a very balanced physique, but have no strength at all because everything is weak, and then you're still way worse than everybody else.
Yeah, and the ethos of judging, of rewarding the physique with the most strengths as opposed to the one with the least weaknesses is called positive judging. I'm very lucky. I was taught how to judge a bodybuilding contest. The man who taught me how to judge a bodybuilding contest was Doug Evans. If you look at Dougie Evans, he's in his 90s now. He still goes to the gym every day, trains over in Wales. He has judged a number of Mr. Olympia contests back in the day, and I was lucky enough to be mentored by him and taken under his wing when I first started judging. That was one of the two most important things he told me. The most important thing was always judge a bodybuilding contest with your head, not with your heart. Doesn't matter how much you want to see somebody win. It doesn't matter how good they used to be or how good they will be with another month of training. The only thing that matters is how good somebody is in the now, right in front of you. Always judge with your head, not your heart. That was the most important thing. The other very important thing he taught me was to judge positively. Be positive about it. Don't be critical about physiques. Reward what is good. And I'll be honest with you, and we'll go a little bit deeper and sort of step outside the whole bodybuilding thing now, but that's not a bad rule to follow for life, is it? You know, be positive and focus on the good stuff. Don't get drawn into the bad stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it works for me, and enough people ask me every year if I can judge or head judge or be part of their shows for me to believe that I must be doing something relatively well, because I wouldn't ask somebody who's bad at a job to come and do a job for me.
Yeah. It's a good philosophy to live by. Just focus on the good things and be positive. And don't just criticize the whole world, especially other guys. Yeah, I mean, I just want to touch onto one topic a little bit briefly because we are good in time. But there's so many things and so much stuff I would love to talk to you about. Maybe we should do a follow-up podcast in the future.
Always, yeah. Absolutely.
And because you touched on the 80s and 90s bodybuilding, where the classic physique, which you also mentioned, is coming from, which I also don't personally see a thing in, or should be a thing in natural bodybuilding. Maybe with some different names, so you can really focus more on the posing and stuff like that. But physique-wise, I think natural bodybuilder is as aesthetics as it gets, because you can see all the lines from the body. You don't have any weird alterations, and the only thing that really changes from a natural bodybuilding and a natural classic physique competitor is the posing. And I mean, also the judging rules are changing a little bit because conditioning is there not rewarded as high as in the bodybuilding class, as far as I know. And to come to the question is like, how strict is the UKDFBA when it comes to posing variations now in the bodybuilding classes, especially with the classic poses like in a lineup?
Okay, good question. Let me just add something that sort of firms up my belief on the subject over what you've just said. You've said that classic bodybuilding, classic physique, whatever anybody wants to call it, doesn't really have a place in natural bodybuilding.
I mean, it can have, but I think when you go on the physique wise and want to judge the physique, then there should be no difference. But when you want to judge like the posing and the presentation, then maybe, because you just got a different set of poses and maybe you're looking for something different, because I think the classic poses are maybe not the best poses to judge a physique,
Sure.
to see all the strengths and weaknesses. But I think when it comes to the body itself, a natural bodybuilder for me is just as aesthetic as it gets. And I mean, you can present it with a different posing, but a bodybuilding show or bodybuilding contest is for me judging the physique. And I mean, posing, of course, too, you have to present your body a special way, but I don't get extra points by posing way better. Sure. Just get more points or a better judging because I can display my muscles a little bit better, if that makes sense.
Okay. I mean, I don't know. I mean, my personal perspective is this. I don't know much about how much you get rewarded for posing in a certain way because I haven't looked into it that closely. I agree with you that classic bodybuilding isn't really something we need in natural bodybuilding. I'll go one step further than that and say I don't think it's a class that's needed anywhere. I don't think we need to have classic bodybuilding anywhere at all. If you look at the need for classic bodybuilding in non-tested shows, it's because the things that we're rewarding or the things that they are rewarding in open class bodybuilding are all of the things that I believe are wrong with the sport. You know, wide waists, big bellies, you know, placing people high just because they've got lines in their backside. I don't agree that any of these things are agreeable elements of bodybuilding. So if they hadn't started rewarding that in the first place, then there would have been no need for a class where it isn't rewarded.
Yeah.
You know, let's talk about the Mr. Olympia contest last year. You know, you've got Big Ramy winning the Olympia, you've got Chris Bumstead winning the Classic. If anybody thinks Big Ramy looks better than Chris Bumstead, then they need to go follow that side of the sport. You know, it's I believe, and it's a similar situation to we know we're wrecking our bodies, so let's only do it once every 4 years issue earlier. That does not solve the problem. All of these guys with all these unfavourable assets to their physiques or unfavourable elements to their physiques are winning bodybuilding shows. So let's just produce another division where they don't. The answer to the problem is, like we said earlier, the answer to the problem is don't break your body in the first place. The answer to this problem is don't encourage people to break their bodies in the first place.
Yep.
Not let's introduce a class where you don't have to break your body, but then keep it the way you do. That's fundamentally why I will stay away from promoting classic physique for as long as humanly possible, because I believe that if you take away the beauty and the aesthetic and the presentation side of bodybuilding and reward it elsewhere, then you're either going to encourage the wrong type of athlete to win a bodybuilding class, or you're just going to destroy bodybuilding and everybody's going to compete in classic.
Yep.
So I'm not a fan of it for that reason, but I am absolutely mindfully aware that I now am in partnership with a governing body that has a classic physique division. And other people have different views on it than I do, and I accept those views, and I think that anybody who wants to compete in it is welcome to do so. Anybody that is a champion in that discipline. Can't be not considered a champion at what they do. I have great respect for what they've achieved. It just isn't for me, and it just isn't the message that I'm trying to send my customer base here in the UK. In terms of our bodybuilding judging, which is the actual question that you asked, and you'll get used to me, it takes me a long time to answer a question.
No problem. I like it.
And I'll answer 5 questions before the one that you asked. In terms of the actual bodybuilding judging that we are doing at our shows in the UK, excuse me, the rules for every discipline in the association are on the website, drugfreebodybuilding.co.uk. The poses are laid out in as much detail as they need to be. So for bodybuilding, we specify a front double bicep pose. You can perform that pose however you want to perform it. If you are not displaying both of your biceps from the front, then we'll call you on it. You know, the front lat spread pose is the next one. The side chest, the side triceps, the rear double showing one calf, we've specified. The back lat spread showing one calf, we have specified. Side triceps with both hands behind your back, we have specified. Abdominals and thigh pose, not a vacuum pose. I want abdominals and thighs, not rib cage and thighs, not spine and thighs, abdominals and thighs. That pose specifically says you have to crunch down on your abs and not show a vacuum. Most muscular pose, whichever one you want to pick. Hands on hips, hands clasped in front of you, crab most muscular, whichever one you want to pick. As long as you're hitting the correct pose, you can put an individual tweak on it. If I call a side chest pose and you give me a twisting back double bicep shot, then we'll have a conversation in front of the audience and one of us is going to look silly. A little variation on the pose. You know, I teach people how to pose and I teach people how to tweak a pose to suit their own needs. When I last competed, I was competing with a bicep tear. Not my bicep wasn't physically torn at the time I was on stage in the contest, but I tweaked a couple of my poses to try and hide the fact I had a bicep tear. Fine, not a problem. I will only pose a side chest and side tricep from one side because I have a pec tear on the other side. So I want to do everything I can to hide that weakness. That's not a problem. But you've got to hit the actual pose that we're asking you to hit.
Okay. Just asking because I know from some judges and judging panels that don't like variations at all. Also, like at my first competitions at the IFBB 2015, the IFBB is very meticulous on setting the poses, how to set them. So if you don't got the foot positioning right, if you do your own variation, like twisting an arm or something like that, they will call you out and tell you, please set the pose how you should do. Maybe they even tell you change that and that, or you will be judged and probably you will lose points there.
Sure. Yeah, I've seen it. I mean, I know that, you know, in the side chest pose, the leg closest to the judges has to be bent. The side tricep, your rear leg has to be back showing the calf. Rear lat spread, you have to stand with your feet level. You can't put a calf back. I know the IFBB rules. I've seen them. There are other disciplines in our organisation, for example, like men's physique. The detail in which the correct way to hit the pose is laid out in the rules, and that's how I want you to hit the pose. You know, your side shot, the leg furthest away from the judges goes backwards. The hand closest to the judges goes on your hip. You know, you need to get those poses right. With bikini, for example, you know, you have the girls hit the front pose and their hand is up in the air like this. Well, no, hand down at your side. You know, that there is a clear guideline on our website as where your hand needs to be. One hand goes on your hip and the other one goes down at your side. It doesn't go up in the air. It doesn't go out to the side. You don't pretend that you're a teapot. You don't, you know, you're not trying to high five anybody or, you know, break dance or anything. You know, there are guidelines for the poses, but bodybuilding specifically, or any discipline where there is a guideline for how the pose is to be hit, that is clearly laid out in the rules. If you follow our rules and regulations, then you won't go wrong. If you are posed in a different way, then you will be called on it.
Yep. What's your personal preference on vacuum on stage? Like doing that in the front relax, the front double biceps, stuff like that?
It depends. I mean, some people, when they hit a front double bicep, if they vacuum while they hit a front double bicep, it actually makes them look better. It makes their V-taper look better. It makes their waist look smaller. Some people try and vacuum when they hit a front double bicep, and all you can see is their ribs poking through their skin because they don't have a lot of muscle. So I'd avoid that one if I were them. Do what makes you look better.
Yep.
The crux of it, with the abdominals and thigh pose, we are specifically asking to see the abdominals. If you're vacuuming, you're not showing us your abdominals. If you want to vacuum where you're hitting a front double bicep and you think that makes you look better, then we will absolutely not score you down for doing it. If you want to hit an ab vacuum in your posing routine, you'll get a round of applause from the audience because it proves that your stomach's empty. And they seem to love that sort of stuff. I don't, I've seen IFBB contests now, for example, and again, this is an open discussion I've had with Bill and Wanda when I spoke to them when I was last with them. In classic bodybuilding now, they actually ask for the vacuum pose. And that to me is no proof that somebody is a classic bodybuilder. Some people don't have the physical makeup to allow them to pull their stomach in tight enough to hit an ab vacuum. So it's, if you can do it, you can do it. It's kind of like the same as doing the split posing routine. As long as you don't get oil and stuff all over the stage that I have to clean up, then, do the splits in your posing routine. It's fun. People will give you a round of applause. It's a nice show of an athletic ability, but you probably won't score any more points for doing it.
Yep. I mean, I'm totally on your side there. I think it's good to have some room for to personalize the pose for yourself, but everything has to be in the bound of rules. So you can't expect to do your foot positioning as you like, or really go into a complete different variation of the pose and expect to be better judged or to be rewarded for doing something wrong.
Yeah, I mean, but my take on it is, we want to see physiques presented in a certain way, and as long as we can accurately, and the reason that, say for example, a front double bicep doesn't have any specific rules behind how we want it hit, but a side pose for a men's physique competitor does, is because whatever little tweak you want to put on a front double bicep, it's going to pretty much look the same as everybody else's. A side shot for a men's physique competitor, you don't know which leg they're showing you, how far they're twisting, which arm's on the hip, which arm's down, whether both arms are down, both arms. It can just make people look so different. And we want to judge people accurately. And to judge people accurately, they've got to be standing pretty much the same way.
Yeah, I think if somebody ever watched a bodybuilding federation where they don't have standard poses, so I know that in some women's classes, there's stuff like do a front pose, do a side pose, do a back pose, and now you have 5 competitors, each hitting a completely different pose. Yeah. You don't know what you should be looking for.
Yeah, exactly. What are we judging here? And it makes you wonder. And there may be some organisations that do this, and there may be contests where it happens. And if that works for them, that's fine. And I don't want to get into a war of saying we're better than them or whatever else. But, my ethos, going right back to the beginning of the conversation when we talked about the ranking structure, team selection, qualification processes, my number one sort of drive behind what we do is to have us taken seriously as a sport. And if you're kind of just cutting around on stage doing anything you want and the judges are kind of picking who they like the most, then you're not getting that into the Olympics anytime soon, are you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's not getting on TV. People are going to sit home and watch that and say, well, how do they even know what's happening? Because they're not even doing the same thing as each other. Then, we've got to get a little bit of a system in place, let's say.
Yeah. I think that's a good last word to round it up, to make the whole turn. Lee, just to sum everything up, just a few brief questions.
Sure.
That would be, where should, how do the competitors or everybody gets the information of the UKDFBA? Where can they find it?
Like I said, we're online at www.drugfreebodybuilding, all one word, .co.uk. If you can't remember the web address, you could go to our Instagram. Our handle is at UKDFBA. Twitter, we are UKDFBA. And you can find me on Facebook, Lee Kemp. The profile that you'll find on Facebook is just about bodybuilding. So you're not interrupting any personal business if you send me a friend request. And we've also got a Facebook page, United Kingdom Drug-Free Bodybuilding Association. Any of those places will give you a resource that will link you back to the website where the rules are housed. And we're not difficult to find. So if anybody wants to, our email address is on the website and on a lot of our social media posts as well. It's UKDFBA@gmail.com. You're always welcome to email us. You will at least get an auto reply from that email. So check your spam in case it goes there. But you will at least get an auto reply from that email to say, go take a look at the website, because what you need to know is there.
Yep. I will put everything in the show notes. So when you're listening to this and want to get one of the resources, just look there. Another thing I would like to ask you is there a way to support the UKDFBA now during the COVID pandemic or during a normal regular season?
Support is relative. If you think that what we're doing is a good thing, then share us on social media and let other people know that we exist. If there's a contest in your area, come and watch it, enjoy it. I hope you have a fantastic day. Every penny that you put into the organisation through ticket sales is going to benefit the athletes. If you want to compete and you want to experience what we've got to offer and you're eligible to do so, you meet the right drug-free criteria and you're willing to abide by our rules, then the greatest support that you can ever give us is to join the association, get yourself on stage in one of our contests and bring your friends to watch and have a good time. Otherwise, I wish everybody the best of luck in whatever they wish to do.
Some very good last words. Lee, thank you for the time. Hope we can talk again in the future.
I hope so. And I'd welcome the opportunity to talk to you again, Alex, because you obviously love the sport as much as I do. And I'll always love an opportunity to talk to somebody who does. So anytime that we're free, I know we put this podcast off for a couple of weeks now, haven't we? Because I wasn't very well the other week with one thing and another, and I've sort of only just got myself straight again now. So I appreciate you having the patience to wait until I was better again. And I've really enjoyed it, and I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, buddy.